First, a little housekeeping. Originally, I was going to do Matthew's request on Heidi's song, but I ran into technical issues. Thus, we settled on doing something else for August. So for now, let's not just dive into any ordinary goofy movie. Backed by popular demand, let's look into an extremely goofy movie. Unlike a Goofy movie, which had a theatrical release, this one is a direct-to-video akin to most other Disney film sequels at the time. It also served as the finale to the Goof Troop TV show. But how do you go from a wholesome family film about a father bonding with his son to one about extreme sports? Well, there's only one way to find out, and right away we show how extreme this movie will be by showing Max and friends skateboarding, biking, and rollerblading. Oh, 90s nostalgia. Never change. Goofy and Pete are holding a celebratory party for their sons, who along with Bobby, still voiced by Pauly Shore, are heading to college. So like any father, Goofy wants to bond with his son a bit before he leaves. Yet Max doesn't seem to remember how much he loved his father.
Well-meaning but totally smothering, overprotective, doting, yucking dads. And we have a surefire way to shoot straight to the top of the freshman heap.
The College X Games!
First freshman team to win it all!
First team to boot those #1 gammas on their booty!
Yeah, let's beat a professional sports team and neglect our studies. And while Goofy is going to sorely miss everyone, Pete couldn't be happier that his son is going.
You're all grown up and leaving for college.
Well, Goof, the way I see it, it's my last night of babysitting and I'm a free man. Oh yeah! Ha ha! Free, 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 I tell you! Yahoo! Ha ha! Come on, son! I can't miss you if you won't leave!
No wonder the rest of his family left him to rot and die alone. As usual, Goofy might be a klutz, but he is wiser than he lets on.
If you want that diploma, you gotta fix both eyes on it like it was this here horseshoe stake.
Come on through it, will ya?
You should hear the clang of a ringer. Ringer! See, Maxie? You just gotta stay focused.
It's getting cold already.
Oh, don't worry about it. You'll always be a #1 dad in my book. So yeah, it looks like this movie is going to replay the father-son bonding story. But instead of Goofy reconnecting with Max despite the latter's delinquency, this time it's just Goofy trying to accept the fact that his son is leaving for college.
Bye, my little college man.
I mean, it's not a bad concept for a Goofy-themed movie, but I was certainly disappointed when I saw all the character development reset for this film. I would think Max would have a little more appreciation for his father, quirks aside, especially after he got him to that Powerline concert. But let's talk about Max and friends. They don't take things seriously. Even though they must have been good enough students to be admitted into higher education, right now their only concern is winning the X Games, which is coming up, against the leader of the Gamma Group, Bradley Uppercrust III, voiced by Jeff Bennett. It's not an easy task, but Max did inherit his father's mad skills as a former guard to King Mickey, and he's talented enough for Bradley to consider recruiting him into the Gammas. But first, how about some cafe poetry?
A lime. It's tart and tangy. Sweet. Oh, so sublime. Quiet. Speechless like a mime.
Bold and noisy like a crime. Don't you dare waste my time, 'cause life can stop
On a dime.
Very inspiring.
Bravo, Miller!
Shut up, Bobby. So Bradley makes his move to invite only Max into his group. Max tries to stand up for his friends, as silly as they can be at times.
Hey! Daddy-O's. This is a real L7 scene. Let's all just take a trip down the road of forgiveness and compassion.
Ooh, passion. I like your style, little Miss Mochaccino, but I'm busy right now.
Well, I'm dizzy right now from watching your downward spiral.
I obviously can't show much of her, because of YouTube, but in this case, her scenes can be pretty good.
Well, we'll dethrone you and the Gammas, your royal lowness. You'll be lucky to be my towel boy.
Why don't we just make a little wager on that? Loser of the finals will be Towelboy to the other.
You got a deal.
So that's one story arc started. Now how about Goofy? Well, he was at a bit of a low point in his life. He wrecks the toy factory that he's a part of, so now he's out of work. He gets back on the job hunt, but he can't, because he doesn't have a college degree. Wow, who knew that this movie predicted just how competitive the job market will eventually become?
What's a goof to do?
Well, Doll, Mr. Goof, the answer to your problem is simple. The only way to build your career is to go back to college.
College? Me? I was there in the 70s. I'm too old for that now.
Come on, Doll, you're never too old to learn a new trick.
I'm guessing because he went 3 years in college before, he just needs to do one more to pass? Sounds easy to me. Well, either way, since we don't know how this place selects students, or whether it charges any tuition fees, guess what happens?
Hi, everybody!
The 70s have invaded! Everybody run!
He's my son!
Daddy's little baby couldn't be alone.
So, yeah, here's where the return to the status quo doesn't help the movie. By the end of the prequel, you would expect Goofy and Max to communicate and understand one another better. Instead, it just seems like the father is butting into his son's life without any prior warning. What doesn't help is how some of the Goofy antics feel forced.
Yeah, no.
Like, it's not as wholesome as the other movie. The personal touch to showcase how our two main characters grew close over time is just not as pronounced here. But to give this movie its dues, I do like the romance arc that Goofy has coming up.
Good morning, gentlemen. I am the head librarian versed in all aspects of your school's library, including but not limited to fiction, nonfiction, periodicals, reference, and policy. How may I help you?
Sylvia Marpole, voiced by Baby Newworth, acts as the love interest for Goofy. This is noteworthy since for the most part, we never got any hints concerning his past love life. Goof Troop has some stray hints that suggest that Max's mother passed away, but details are hard to come by on the topic, and some is just unconfirmed anyway. I only bring this up because the idea of Goofy in any romantic relationship would bring a new element to the existing family dynamics. It could be refreshing to see how father and son interact with the mother figure before her untimely end. Then, of course, if Goofy is interested in another, how would Max feel? Sadly, we only get Max approving of his father's new relationship, because that will get him away for the time being. But you know, they still make a cute couple. And it helps that Sylvia shares Goofy's interests in anything related to the 70s. It is unfortunate that she hasn't made any other appearances, not even in the new DuckTales cartoon that allowed Max to be with Roxanne. Mickey has Minnie, Donald has Daisy. Is it too much to ask for one more couple, Disney? I want more of this.
Like dancing, dancing, dance the night away. I feel like dancing, dancing.
Okay, getting back to the plot, it escalates when Goofy finds Max skateboarding. And like the Goofy is, he ends up bumping into him and doing some extreme skateboarding!
Excellent! There are no openings on my team. Okay?
Mr. Goof, your performance was without a doubt the most breathtaking display of alternative sport inventiveness yet to be paralleled by mankind.
Okay, I do love some of the pompous expressions Bradley makes. It's a good indicator for the solid animation quality that this movie uses. Not to the level of its predecessor, but well above average for a direct-to-video film. Anyway, Bradley invites Goofy to join the Gammas after seeing him rip it up, and Max also chooses to encourage him to accept the offer. After all, if Goofy is hanging out with the Gammas, that means more alone time for Max.
You say so.
Go for it, Dad.
Hey, Mr. Uppercrust, you can count me in.
All right, then. There you go.
Though that might backfire. On the first day of the X Games, the rivalry between Max and Brad is reaching a boiling point. And if you're thinking that Bradley picked Goofy because he can actually skate, well...
Adios, compadre.
Starting off bad, looping out with a double flip to a headbutt. No!
Looks like Brother Goof needs a boost.
And a huge triple flip on the corner pipe.
Guess we know the secret to Gamma's success. Cheating! I'm just amazed that no one catches him in the act. The rocket board looks easier to hide, but how does no one see him shine a light to distract Max?
With barely above a 6-point average, Team 99 just makes it to the semifinals by the skin of their teeth.
Okay, just to nitpick a bit, Max's average score should actually be 5.85, which means disqualification. So naturally, Goofy gets his fans, and Max is upset that his father is in the way of his own objectives. And in a moment that definitely nullifies the first movie's bonding session, this happens.
Just trying to get closer to you.
Oh, don't you get it? I'm trying to get away from you. I'm not a little kid anymore. Now just leave me alone and get your own life.
I feel like that could have been handled better. So now Goofy sinks back into his depressed state. He's unable to focus for the midterms, and his obsession with his son is causing hallucinations.
Hello world, here's a song that we're singing. Come on, get happy.
Well, at least they picked a song from the 70s for him to enjoy. But things go from bad to worse. Goofy fails the midterms, becomes even more depressed, and misses a date with Sylvia. Now he's back home and getting a lecture from Pete. And like the previous movie, his lecture inadvertently gets the plot moving again, since his sucking at horseshoes reminds Goofy of the real reason he failed at life.
That's it. I lost my focus. I gotta get back there and straighten things out.
Meanwhile, Max is feeling that he should transfer because of his loss to his father. Beret Girl tries to cheer him up, saying that he shouldn't lose hope after defeat. But funnily enough, Bobby is the one to help finish getting Max back on his feet.
You want to let the crowd who once cheered for you cheer for someone else? Especially when that someone else is your old man?
No.
Are you gonna be someone else's town boy?
No.
Together we can do it!
You're right. We can still beat them. Let's whip those Gammas.
I really don't like how Max is overly negative towards his father. Even in the first movie, he had moments of appreciating him. even during their quarrels. But reforging that father-son bond can wait. There's still the matter of Goofy mending his relationship with Sylvia.
Well, gee, if a certain someone truly cared about another someone, you would think that the certain someone would show up for a certain special dinner, or at least apologize for not showing up, or even call, or something.
I'm so sorry. I let my head get so filled up with fiddle-faddle that I plumb lost track of everything that's important to me. Counting you. Can you ever forgive me?
Oh, how can I not forgive you?
I totally agree with that.
Most important, get my son back.
Well, what are we waiting for? I've got a yearning for some learning.
God damn, I love these two. So in a montage, set to a 60s song this time, Goofy studies hard to do better in the next round of midterms, and he does.
Oh, you did it! You did it! Oh, look, all A's! Oh, oh, I am just so proud of you, Goofy. Oh, let's go celebrate.
Third base time? Maybe too soon. Right now, he has to go and quit the Gammas.
Excuse me? Do what?
Hey, no way. What is he talking about, huh?
Just what makes you think you can change your mind on the last day of the competition?
Not sure why you care. He already served his purpose. Goofy actually gets to be a little badass when handling Tank and Bradley, though he still gets the boot out the door treatment. This doesn't stop Goofy from listening into the gang's plans to cheat again during the next session, and he tries to warn his son about it with little success.
Yeah, did Bradley tell you to say that? Stop wasting my time, Dad. I gotta stay focused.
Well, screw you! If Roxanne truly left you at this point, then we all know why. Even when he learns that Goofy isn't part of the Gammas, he doesn't seem to question it. At any rate, the semifinals start and the Gammas attempt to sabotage the competition. It doesn't seem to work well at first. Bobby wins at rock climbing, and PJ avoids a rocket during the bike event. But the finals is a triathlon, and Bradley cheats again by causing PJ to rocket away.
Wait, hold on! Bradley just blasted our third guy into the next state!
Why, that is absurd. I did nothing of the sort.
Oh, that's what my dad has been trying to tell me!
How does he keep getting away with this? And now Max understands that his father was trying to help. Well, gee, does this mean you're going to give an emotional speech to bring him back, since you need one more person to compete?
Relax, I'm not in trouble. It's just the team needs you. I need you.
That would be a yes. Naturally, Goofy goofs his way onto the stage, and it sounds like they'll sort things out after the competition. As they race, Goofy at least doesn't trip or fall, but he does fall for at least one of the traps.
Sorry, ma'am.
Operation Hay Bale.
Isn't that Mickey Mouse over there? Mickey Mouse! Oh no, he's over there.
Huh. So he really is a celebrity in this reality. Of course, that puts our heroes ahead of the Gammas, if only for about 10 seconds. And sure, Goofy ends up knocking one of their members out, but oddly enough, when they reach the bikes, only 2 of them are red. So does that mean their third guy is out because of what Goofy did? Don't they all need to pass the finish line? I guess not, since Bobby is eliminated when his bike breaks. Plus with him gone, that means one less skateboard to account for. Once again, Goofy messes up and knocks Bradley down. Now pissed, Bradley decides to cheat again, but Goofy saves the day with his lucky horseshoe.
What the?
Never mind! Max has a chance to win, but he isn't going to leave Tank behind. Goofy helps too, and it's one of the few times where the movie feels intense. I should also point out that in later versions of the film, this scene with the logo was removed due to resembling the fall of the Twin Towers on 9/11. Some versions would still keep it, and honestly, while I get the reasons behind omitting this scene, Doing so would have taken away one of the few times where I'm glad Max and Goofy are doing something together. Anyway, with Goofy acknowledging his son as an adult, he and Tank push him onward so he can catch up to Bradley and finally surpass him. Max wins, and Bradley is at least classy enough to offer a handshake. But he still needs to be punished.
A vacancy at the Gamma House. Taking applications.
Okay, let go of me, you big fat jerk!
Time to get on the last jet to nowhere.
Oh, it doesn't look good now, folks. It's like I'm in a bad dream and it just won't quit.
That's right.
So it seems Goofy was able to graduate college, and Max gives him the trophy he won. Why?
Read the inscription. I might not be your little boy anymore, but I'll always be your son.
Free eats back at the Dorma. Pizza. Double cheese.
Not now, Bobby! And with one last joke to his son about possibly becoming a teacher here, Goofy just goes off with Sylvia to do God knows what. Disney may have forgotten her, but I won't.
Even a
Walk on the beach? I'd love to.
You know, somehow I knew you would.
This movie is not as good as the first one, but by direct-to-video sequels from Disney standards, it works just fine. The main problem comes from disregarding the family relationship building that the first movie worked so hard to portray. So to see Max forget about the bonding time he had with his father feels baffling, and he's unlikable throughout most of this. Goofy's behavior tends to be questionable as well, even though he corrected his mistakes earlier than his son. But what salvaged his character was his budding romance with Sylvia. It was just a cute relationship, and it's a real shame she doesn't come back in later media. The general plot kind of felt like one big endorsement to ESPN, since their names show up constantly. I suppose it works fine enough, but it didn't really feel extreme all that much. Outside of Goofy's antics, it felt pretty normal. On the whole, the sequel was serviceable, if ultimately unnecessary. It's just kind of there. And unless you really want to see Goofy take up extreme sports, then it can be skipped. I say stick with the first movie. I'm the media hunter. Media's my prey, and reviewing them my way.